I've been asked to prepare a podcast regarding the evilness of Donald Trump and disclose information about his corrupt administration. Now, one of the reasons I was asked is because in order to survive during Trump's presidency, I had to become a historian. I recorded all evil acts that he committed and many lies in order to maintain my sanity. And this list that I generated includes 246 acts of evil. Now that's too much to put into one podcast, but I will give a summary of his evil nature. I will do it in basically 7 categories. The first category is his dishonest acts and his dishonesty. Number 2 is unethical activities. Number 3, his narcissism. Number 4, his racist attributes. Number 5, his misogynistic aspects. Number 6, his aspect of being a bully. And number 7, his attributes as a politically corrupt president. Now, as far as his dishonesty, it had been documented by many sources, including the New York Times, that kept a running track of his dishonest statements. And their conclusion was that there were over 9,700 lies during 780 days that they kept track of such things. One example I would give, which was the most humorous in a sad way, was when he made a statement about a hurricane and he was called on it. And in order to prove that he was correct, he had a drawing of the area covered by a hurricane and amateurishly used a marker to show that an extended area covered what he had said in his statement. It was humorous but sad. The second area is unethical. And there's many examples of his lack of ethics, starting from his businesses in real estate before his presidency. Many vendors will testify to his lack of payment and the fraud that he perpetrated in dealing with other vendors and customers. The second area is his committing of bank fraud and insurance fraud and tax fraud, mostly emanating from false valuations. He would value assets high for insurance purposes and high for bank loan purposes and low for tax, real estate, and income tax purposes. His foundation, which he founded, was found guilty of crimes, tax crimes, and was forced to dissolve it. And his university was found guilty of many irregularities. Also, the emoluments clause, which is a critical one for presidents to not gain profit from their position as a president, he violated in many cases. For instance, the Doral Hotel, he had suggested that the G7 conference be held there. So clearly his profit-making ventures were gaining from his presidency. Narcissism. There's a list of several attributes to a narcissist, and he is a classic. From the first day of his presidency, where he extolled the success of the crowds that saw him and became the first controversy, and pictures proved that he was lying, but it was all about how popular he was. His trips to disaster areas, he would, instead of emphasizing the plight of the sufferers, he would show off about people's receiving him and his popularity on these trips. An important area where his narcissism got in the way was COVID. He he was accused of overlooking COVID for nearly 10 weeks because he thought it cast aspersions on his presidency, which was very detrimental and cost a lot of lives. And the time where he had the government troops disperse crowds in D.C. and use tear gas just so he could have a photo op clearly pointed to the fact that it was all about him and his popularity. The attribute of racism is pretty well documented in his own statements. He was against Muslims and tried to pass laws that didn't allow them into the country. And the same thing for his immigration policies with Mexico. He accused Mexicans of being rapists and lawbreakers. The appointment of Steve Bannon, another very bigoted person, his mocking of a reporter in showing motions of the person as if they were mentally challenged was very insulting and racist. The next category is misogyny. This is an easy one. There were over 30 women who had realistic claims of sexual harassment by Donald Trump. And there were a number of them who also actually stated that he committed rape. People are pretty much aware of his tape with Billy Bush, where he referred to women's genital areas in a very disrespectful way, saying you're allowed to and you're encouraged to fondle those areas of women, and showed a great disrespect of women. A bully, he was a bully. He just his tweets. He was documented to have over 500 tweets, which hugely disrespected people. Did name calling. He adopted names for candidates he was against, from Hillary to Ted Cruz. Just at the G7 conference, there was a video of him pushing aside somebody just to get to the front because he was the most important person. I mean, this showed a bully and a narcissist. And last but not least, the political corruption, which was huge in his presidency, from using hush money to pay off strippers, Stormy Daniel, in an illegal way, and the $400 million of aid that was supposed to be given to Zelensky in Ukraine, and he refused to give it. He was blackmailing him before he could obtain those funds by saying he needed to investigate and disclose an investigation of Biden's son. There were about 28 of his advisors and appointees were, as I said, indicted. So he was surrounded by corruption. And last but not least, in many clear ways, he incited his supporters to commit sedition and attempt a coup in Washington, D.C., in the famous January 6th uprising. So these are just a few of the main examples that point out to the evil of Donald Trump and the corruptness of his presidency. And despite defeating him and having a new president in office, the nightmare of Donald Trump still continues, as his base of support, about 30% of the population, still promote him and his ideas for presidency, and also perpetuate his main lie that the election was stolen from him. So the nightmare continues, and hopefully there'll be a day when it ends. Thank you.